This ain't just a Toy Story or a foreign unboxing. These are the stories of action, toy glory, and work clocking. SH Figuarts, Black Series are hot toys. And figures with transformation sequences that make noise. Check out the joints and the many points of articulation. We're celebrating the global collector nation. Sit back, relax, and get ready to rock this. Here's the real Chow.
Welcome to Shelf Conscious. I am Keith Chow. I am joined by an amazing guest. You know her from her hosting stints, but in a few weeks, she's going to be playing Andra on Masters of the Universe Revelation on Netflix. She is the Smith Lord herself on the Nerds of Color. Please welcome Tiffany Smith.
Yay! I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you.
I get so giddy when other people say Smith Lord. I'm like, yeah.
So was that a nickname, self-proclaimed nickname, or did someone give that to you?
So I was on a podcast for a while. Christian Harloff and I did a podcast that was Star Wars, and then obviously we all ended up coming over and doing Jedi Council, and ended up like we all had names, Star Wars names, and mine has always been Smith Lord, because I'm like, even though in real life I don't really think I would be a Sith, in my fantasy life I'm definitely a Sith, so it just kind of stuck.
So do you and Kevin have to ever fight out whoever gets to be like the real Smith Lord, or is he's fine with it? He's like...
We constantly make jokes that are like, oh, it's my other favorite Smith. Oh, it's the only other Smith I really like. Or like, it's the other Smith and we're not related.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
No, I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I've been following your career. You know, you're so, I see in your background, you're so associated with, in my mind at least, with DC Comics, you know, for your stint on DC All Access and DC Daily and everything. And I see the Justice League right behind you. Is it weird, kind of like, because you're so associated with DC, to like dip your toe in these other fandoms?
No, because I started, I've always been a fan. So I always used to joke when I first started reading comic books. I did a YouTube show for a while called Stacked, and I reviewed comics from every house, because for me, it was always, if it's a good story and it's got good characters, then I'm on board for it. And I actually I started hosting for G4 for a while, and Marvel actually brought me on to host premieres for them for a bit. And then I ended up going over to the DC show. So I have friends at all of the places. So it doesn't really feel like it's only one or the other. Obviously, I really have spent a lot of time within the DC space from doing DC All Access and DC Daily. But I've never stopped enjoying, you know, the Marvel stuff and any of the other independent stuff we're starting to see even more of now. So I think that I like to say that I practice like geek diplomacy, that like I can like all of it.
Exactly. You know, I feel like sometimes the whole, you know, DC versus Marvel, the Coke versus the Pepsi of all is kind of like overhyped a lot of times. It's like you can love all of it, and that's what we promote here at the Nerds. Although we've been accused of both like Marvel shilling and DC shillings. Like, I guess that's a good thing if everyone thinks you're shilling for the other guy, right?
I mean, in my mind, it's like a rising tide raises all the ships. So if Marvel's doing great stuff, then it pushes DC to do different stuff. If DC's doing great over here, then it pushes Marvel. And it pushes everybody else too, where it's like, you know, like I said, getting like more indie stuff where it's not necessarily from some of the big publishing houses, or, you know, just stuff's growing more in all the different avenues. It doesn't necessarily have to just be those two.
You know, you mentioned your hosting gig on G4, and you know, you've been in the geek space for a long time now, and it's kind of wild to think about where we are in July of 2021 in terms of like geekdom and the nerdosphere. You know, we've been covering this industry since 2013, and the strides we've made in representation as fans of color has come like leaps and bounds, right? Because I think when you started off in the industry, when we started covering it, I mean, one of the reasons we started the Nerds of Color was because like there weren't a lot of spaces for like fans like us to kind of like, you know, we can love it, but also criticize it because we love it so much, right? And say like, it'd be nice if there was brown faces in this cartoon or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And that's come a long way since like when you started in kind of the hosting world, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think like it's always been something I grew up noticing. You know, I used to watch cartoons when I was little, and my sister and I would do the I'm her or I'm him or whatever it is at the beginning of the show, and it was rare that there was ever a character that I actually looked like. So when my dad would travel for work and stuff, if he went anywhere that they had action figures or dolls that were brown skin, he would always bring them home for us and be like, here's a doll, here's a figure, you know. And he was the one who actually got me started reading comic books. It was Storm that I first that was the first character for me that I was like, oh my gosh, she looks like me. And then it went from there to like I joked that my dad was like a comic book dealer, because it was like, so we can watch the animated show, but here are all these other stories if you want to keep up when she was not on. And so that to me was kind of the entree. But then after that, like I think the reason there are so many diverse fans is because of the fact that if you're a superhero, innately you have something different about you that sets you apart. And that's the thing that makes you special. And so I think for me, I'm multiracial. And so I've always been kind of, you kind of fit here, you kind of fit here, you kind of fit here, but then you kind of don't fit anywhere. And so it's always been something for me where it's like, this is my superpower. My watch just said, I know.
Your watch talks to you, right? It's just, that's like you have the Batman gadgets just like that too.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely right. The superhero kind of story, the dual identity, is something that people of color especially deal with, right? Like, we created a series of Asian American superhero anthologies back in the day, and part of the inspiration was like Superman, and Gene Yang talks about this when he took her, and I kind of crib Gene all the time, like, he stole that from us, but like he talks about how like Superman is very much like an Asian American character in that he's got this hyphenated name in his real life, and he's got to like wear these thick glasses when he's at work, but he's got this kind of like secret inside that he can't tell anyone about. And I think that's that kind of like dual space that we have as fans of color that we notice and we pick up on, like masked characters, right? Spider-Man, Snake Eyes, we're drawn to them because we can be them under the mask,
Yeah.
And I think that's, kind of where we, speaking of wearing masks, it's like we've come full circle in 2021. Like everyone's wearing masks now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is definitely something with superheroes where it's anybody can be them. That's why I think, Spider-Man is so iconic, and anyone could be under that suit. You never know who it is. And I think that it's also something that helps to bring people together in ways where it's like, it could be anybody under there. So how do you know it's not someone that's just like you or totally opposite than you? I think that there is, like you said, kind of that we love it so much that we can pick it apart sometimes. And I try really hard to stay away from that aspect as much as I can, just because I'm like, one, no one creates anything with the hope of it being bad. Like everyone's putting their heart and soul into these creative projects. And so I always want to support in every way that I can, or find the positive in it. And so I think that that's the same with, seeing more diversity out there, that it's like every time someone tries something, it's so hard sometimes because you want to get it perfect. And there's no way in anything that you're going to make everyone happy. So I think that just because the fact that we're seeing more and more, that is such a big win, that it's like, let's keep trying it. Let's keep pushing. Let's keep broadening it. So it doesn't feel as shocking when, oh, wow, it's the first Black feature film, Black Panther. It's so great. That should just be normal. I mean, it's an incredible movie. And, I think it's one of those things that we're getting closer and closer to that with every single project that comes out, which, again, obviously talking about Master of the Universe, I feel so lucky to get to be, the character that's helping to diversify Eternia. I mean, there's tons of different kind of like Beast Man and like
right. Well, that's always been the case, right? Like they can be orange and green and purple, but if they're brown, it's all of a sudden, well, that's not realistic, Yeah. Let's talk about Masters real quick, because that was an example. You talked about the cartoons you used to watch when you were growing up, and I know like Masters was one of my favorite cartoons as a kid, and I didn't have there was like Jitsu, and I was like, I don't need to be Jitsu. I want to be He-Man, and that's the thing, again, as a fan of color. But now in 2021 with the sequel to the original series, we do have a character that's making her animated debut, right? She's been in the comics, but she's never been in the cartoon. I don't think there's ever been a figure. I know Super 7 and Mattel have done like a ton of figures, and that's the one figure they've never done. So maybe there's going to be one in the Massiverse line. Maybe not. But you're playing Andra, who's even though she's such an obscure character, she's got quite a fan base. People have wanted to see her come to life beyond the comic books for a long time. What was it like to embody that character, first of all? And when you got the call from, I guess, Kevin or whoever, like, what did you think when you were like, I'm going to be, a master of the universe?
The crazy part about this character to me is that I grew up watching the show. There's a picture of me from first grade where I'm holding a Mermista action figure in my class photo. Like, I loved She-Ra and He-Man. My sister and I would run around and like our underwears being like, I'm She-Ra, Wonder Woman, Princess of Power, Gem and the Holograms. Like, all to just say all of the names. So when the audition came up, I was so excited because I was like, I don't know who the character is. They had different names. Stuff is cryptic sometimes. So I was like, I don't know, is Andra a character that's new? Is this, something that's going to be changed to a different name later? And I think I auditioned for 2 different roles. So I just gave it my all for both of them because I was like, you know what? I'm so excited about this project. The fact that the breakdowns and the script that we got for the auditions were so strong. And I knew who was involved in the project at that point. I knew Kevin was involved. I knew some of the writers that were involved. And so I was like, this is going to be great. Like if I can crush this, I'm gonna be so excited. So I definitely gave it my all. In one of the auditions, though, I had the line, I have the power at the end of the line. So of course I'm like, how do you say that line and not feel cheesy about it or like not do it correctly? So I like pulled my lightsaber off the wall that I fully built at Disneyland, and yes, it's red. Pulled it off the wall. I did my whole scene, and then I was like, I have the power, and then I turned it on, and I just left it at the end of my take because I was like, either they're gonna listen and be like, she's a geek, and that'll be great, or they'll be like, maybe too much of a geek. But that's who I am, and it's who I always will be. So, but I think it like gave me the confidence to say that line. And so, yeah, it was one of those things where I didn't know where the character was going to go, what her arc was going to be, or even I don't think at that point I knew that, she was going to be human or like the person who was going to bring diversity into the world a bit more. So yeah, I sent him off, and then I know I kept checking with my agent. I was like, did we hear anything? Did we hear anything? Did we hear anything? And they finally called and they were like, so you booked it. And I was like, so excited. I texted my friends that were on it. Of course, I texted Kevin. I was like, I'm so excited to be a part of this. And I literally we just had to get together because all of us haven't been able to be in the same space because of COVID. And I came home and I texted everybody and I was like, I just keep pinching myself. I'm so thankful to get to be a part of this show. And, powerhouse animators came into town, and, Kevin, and then everybody over at Mattel and Netflix and all of the voice actors and Bear McCreary. I mean, his music is insane for this show.
It makes Kevin cry. I've seen the YouTube videos.
I told them, I was like, listen, I had got a record player during quarantine. I've gotten really into listening to records. And I was like, I've got, the Lord of the Rings, got my Star Wars. There's only a few soundtracks that I'll just play while I'm like in the house. And I was like, there had better be a record for the soundtrack. Because I think he just did one for Outlander or for Battlestar. And so it's like everyone involved from the gate was like, we are giving 110% to this project because everyone was so passionate about the show, had their own connection to it from a young age or from wherever they came into it. And I just feel really lucky that, it's one of those things where it's like, I work really hard, but it was kind of right place, right time. And one of my favorite thing, there's lots of favorite things about the show, but when I booked it, in one of my first sessions, Kevin was like, hey, just so you know, because I've worked with Kevin before. We hosted a show on ABC, and I've gotten to talk with him at other interviews and stuff. But he was like, I just wanted you to know that like Mattel, they picked you. And I said, yeah, her. Which as an actor is something it's so important to know that. Like, it's great when you get to work with your friends, but I like to consider myself scrappy, where I'm like, I work really hard and I'm not going to put something out there that I feel I'm not proud of, or that it's half-assed. And so that just made me feel that much more excited about booking the role, where it was like, okay, I know I booked this on my voiceover acting chops, and everybody else felt like I was right for the role too. Because I saw that cast list come out and I was like,
well, that's a hell of a voice talent list, right? I mean, you got Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy, for God's sakes, like legends in the animated voiceover. Yeah. And more than that, I think, the geek test that you pass is that you pronounce it Powa, because that's really the big That's how you know you're a Motu geek, right? You don't say I have
Yeah.
the power. It's
Yeah.
I have
Never
the
say that
power,
part.
right? Like that's what got you the part, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Andra, because I think one of the things that's really cool about this character, because she's never been featured in the series and kind of can be the like audience's gateway into the world of Eternia. And that's kind of what I've read. Full disclosure, I've not seen anything. Netflix, where you at? Where's my screener? What I can gather from the trailers and the synopsis is that she's going to be kind of like the audience's avatar in a way, right?
Yeah, I mean the cool thing about it, which like just jumping off, I have the power line. I get that. Could you try?
My watch is talking to me too.
We're gonna have to sync up our work.
Exactly. We just do the rest of the interview like this. How about that? Like we're real geeks.
But yeah, I felt lucky because I didn't have to match anybody else's performance, or people didn't already have an idea of who Andra was and how she sounded and how she acted. But for Chris, I was like, dude, saying that line, like I think he freaking knocks it out of the park. He does it so well, and he's so well cast for this role that like it gives me chills, because I'm like, to me, it takes so much confidence and trust in the team doing the show to take on a character like that line is so iconic. But yeah, so back to Andra. So yeah, she's in the comics, and I think she's in like 4 different frames throughout them. Right. So you don't really hear much except that it's Lieutenant Andra. And so when they decided, we want to bring someone else in, they were like, okay, how can we're going to honor the mythos of Eternia and Masters, but what's a character that really doesn't have much of a story, or has much more we could build on? And so that was where Andra came in. And so I will say this, the title, like Lieutenant Andra, may show us some of the journey that she goes on, who knows? But what I love about her so much is that, she is that audience gateway into it. I remember at one session I was talking to Kevin, and I was like, she feels like at times like Barry Allen, where it's like Barry Allen, when he meets the other superheroes, he's like, oh, Batman!
Right.
All these characters, and he's the Flash. He's like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so she's kind of that way, where it's, meeting people in Eternia and experiencing things for the first time, that it felt really natural, because as you can tell, I'm really unexcitable. But yeah,
your personalities doesn't come through whatsoever in this character, I'm sure.
But that was what was so great is, Kevin, when I came in for the first session, he was like, we talked about who she was and where she was going to go. And, he was just like, she's you, Tiffany. I was like, okay. So obviously, like, I would like to think of myself as badass as she is. And I strive to be more like that every day. But it really is like a lot of her is me, which is so awesome. And I hope that, when people watch it, my dream is that there's kids that are watching, or even older kids watching, because I consider myself a kid always watching, and they're like, I'm her, or they can see themselves.
Well, I was about to say, it's full circle to what you said when you were a kid growing up. You were a sister, and you would turn on the television and point to the one character that was probably, truth be told, in the background, kind of like, oh, there's a face that looks like me, maybe. And now the same kids today are looking at the show and going, I'm this main character that is centered in the series. And that's what I was talking about. Like, that's the thing that fills me with so much joy in the geek space, that like now there's room for us as well, that we can be at the center of the story. And I'm, the other thing that comes out, not that you can't do both, but like the other thing that comes out on July 23rd is Snake Eyes. And I've been an advocate for an Asian Snake Eyes my entire life. Yeah. So like that, I bring it up on every episode of this show. So that's why I'm bringing it up now. So my intention is to binge all of Masters and then go to the theater and watch Snake Eyes. Like July 23rd is going to be, Keith is 8 years old again, which is every day. Let's be real. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. That sounds like a good day.
Because this is a toy show and Masters is one of the most iconic toy brands. Like, has Mattel said, hey, Can you come in and take a look at your action figure yet? Or when are we getting an Andra action figure is what I'm saying.
But I can show you. This is how I've been spending my time lately. Ooh.
Oh no.
Stuff down. We're knocking stuff down. It's okay.
Oh, I saw that on Insta that you've been building the Mega Blocks.
It's what I do every night for a couple of hours as far as I've gotten. I have some of the like figures as well. But yeah, I mean, Mattel has been awesome because they know that I'm a geek. And so it's like, what stuff do you want? Do you want to play with stuff? Yes. We had a press day and it was me and Sarah and Chris. And Chris had all the action figures behind him. And both of us were like, where are our toys?
Right.
And then immediately, of course, it was like, Sarah texted me, was like, I got some stuff. I was like, I got some stuff too. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's so cool when you're a fan of the projects you work on because then you get to play with cool toys. Like,
yeah. Has that sunk in yet? Like, is it the wildest thing ever?
It's so I have a shelf in my bedroom. I'm totally into like manifesting and putting out into the world what I want to do and projects I want to work on. And so I have Funkos and figures of all these characters that like I love aspects of them, or I want to play this character one day. It has like Ripley on there because I love Alien and, you know, Khaleesi and
Zatanna. Are there any Zatanna?
Multiple. This is by my door.
Nice.
I love that I'm like 2 feet away. I'm like, there's toys I can show you.
Well, you're on the perfect show for that.
Yeah. So. But I'm so excited to add Andra to that shelf, and it'll be a little bit different because I'm like I said, it'll be more the aspect of wanting to be more like her. Because like I said, she's a badass, but she's an engineer. She's a great friend. She like finds family and connection really, really important. And those are all things that I think are, I mean, I'm not an engineer, but I can make, you know, some mega constructs pretty well.
That's pretty good. That's pretty close. I mean, not everyone can build Castle Grayskull.
It's true.
As someone in the geek space, someone who's loved this stuff forever and got your start kind of like hosting and presenting, you've recently in the last several years made that transition from like hosting and talking about like all of these fandoms and projects to actually being part of a lot of these fandoms and projects, doing a lot of voiceover work, of course, doing a lot of on-camera acting. You're freaking Meghan Markle. Like, that's crazy. What has that transition been like to go from kind of like hosting and presenting and talking about and interviewing celebrities to becoming one yourself?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a celebrity.
Well, you're definitely going to be on the other side of the microphone when walking down that red carpet.
I think the most surreal experience I had with that was I just come back from filming the Harry and Meghan movie. This was a couple years ago. And I literally just came back, and the next day or 2 days later was the Shazam premiere. And obviously working with DC for so long, and Zach Levi is a friend. And so I was so excited to go. And I got to walk the carpet, and it was my friends that were interviewing, you know? So it was like, this is awesome. So weird, but also awesome because I get to talk about this acting project that I did. And for me, like I said earlier, you know, I work really hard because I don't want to put something out there that I'm not proud of. And so for acting, it was like I was taking classes quietly and not really telling people that I was auditioning. And, you know, because I was like, I want to make sure that when I start doing a little bit of both, that it's not like, oh, she just booked blah, blah, blah because of blah, blah, blah. And I feel really lucky because everyone's journey in this industry is so different. There's no way to say, you know, well, I'm going to be an assistant, then I'm going to move to this, and then I'm going to move to this. It's like, you just never know where an audition or opportunity is going to come up. And so for me, it's been really cool. And I learned so much from being a host and being able to do set visits and stuff and seeing like huge sets where it's like, I can visualize. It's easier for me to visualize myself acting on one of those sets because I've experienced it from the other side, where it was like, I didn't have as much pressure being an actor. I was there to do a job, which, you know, I was there to do great too. But I think that it's one of those things now where it's like, I get to audition for projects, and then sometimes I'll get a message from a director that's like, I saw your tape and I was so excited. This is a project that I've like done a set visit on or hosted a panel for them. And so that's something that I think is really cool. And it feels good. Like I said, the same thing with booking, you know, Andra, where it was like, of course you want to work with your friends, but I want it to be because I'm the right person for the job, and then we're friends on top of it. That's like icing on the cake.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, it's too bad that there isn't a Comic-Con, or at least not one in the summer as there used to be. I think there's one there's a Thanksgiving Comic-Con this year, which is weird. But if there was a Comic-Con, you've hosted many panels, like to be the one sitting at the table where that's what you would have done this summer, and in a way you kind of are, and that's again that transition. As someone who's also like been at Comic-Con, it's like to be on stage but not behind the podium but on the table. That's pretty cool. So you live in the dream is what I'm saying, Tiffany. Like you're doing what we all wish that we could do.
Well, thank you. I feel like literally I sometimes think about, before I moved to Los Angeles, I was living in New York and I was working, I love cars, so I worked the car shows for a while. And every time I would come out to LA, this is where I'm originally from, but every time I would come out to do the shows, I would always be like, can I meet with the talent coordinators at G4? Can I meet with them? My dream is to work for G4. And the fact that like that actually happened, there was a point where they were like, we can't hire you unless you're living out here. Like there's no permanent job. Do you want to come do the feed? Like maybe that, but there was no guarantee. So I moved out here and I started at G4, and then it was like from G4, then I hosted the premiere for the first Avengers film. And I just remember it was like, it feels like it was just yesterday, because I remember them being like, okay, you're just going to kind of do color commentary where it's, you're talking about the energy and the vibe on the carpet. And then the last second they were like, so Kevin Feige decided he doesn't want to announce the cast, so you're going to go up and announce everyone. And I was like, are you... I get to like say Iron Man, like right. I get to say characters. And it's like, I literally pinched myself, and I'm so thankful that like I journal a bunch of stuff, because it's like things that have happened where I'm like, how like even the fact that, playing Meghan Markle, I didn't know there was going to be someone who was mixed like I am. And, that it would be kind of I jokingly say that I'm like doing that movie was like grad school for acting, because I had a pregnancy belly. There was a dog. I had sex scenes. I had fight scenes. I had crying. I had a wedding. Like
right.
there was stunts.
You got to wear a tiara.
Yeah. I told my dad, I was like, Dad, you should feel good because I got a custom dress, and I don't think I need to do that if and when I ever get married. So I'm like, did it once. But I just feel like it's, you can like think about the things you want and really work towards them. And then it's a matter of having the work ethic, I think, and luck of right place, right time,
Yeah.
Like, jokes aside, literally my mom said to me, she's like, you manifested this in first grade. You were holding that little action figure. I'm like, who would have ever thought that? I'm like, I can post that now and be like, look, I'm on this show.
Right. Well, I'm sure that's coming, right? July 23rd, we're going to see the side-by-side on Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of action figures, last question I wanted to ask you, you've been, collecting toys since you were a kid. You have a freaking Castle Grayskull to your right as we speak. Is there one toy or collectible that's out there that you don't have yet that's like your holy grail? Like that's the one thing that, hey, now I'm a freaking master of the universe. Maybe I can put it out in the world and someone will send it to you. But like, what's that one holy grail piece that you don't have that? I mean, you got a lightsaber, you got, Zatanna statues. What's the one thing that's missing from your shelf right now?
I don't have a One Ring, Lord of the Rings ring. I do have Elvish tattooed on me, but I don't have a One Ring. And I would say I'm like, I for the longest time really wanted, which I can.
I love that. I love when you go off camera and come back with like something awesome in your hand.
So this is like one of the things I was coveting for a very long time.
Oh,
it's the first appearance of Zatanna.
Nice.
And so this was something for me that like it's on my shelf. I see it every day, and I'm like, one day, when they're writing the script now. I'm saying
HBO Max. Give my girl a call. What are you waiting for?
So I would say the thing I would want. I'm like the top hat.
Like I know you have the top hat already, but like the legit,
have like a costume top hat. I want the top hat from when I wear it on the TV show.
Exactly. We'll start, and I'm sure you've already practiced talking backwards. You can do that.
I practice, but I think it's one of those things where I'm like, it's too good. I feel like it's like, I mean, I don't know how they're going to decide to do it when they do it, you know.
But you've got that skill and you're ready to break it out in the audition is all I'm saying.
I did take classes at the Magic Castle, which I cannot recommend highly enough. It was so much fun.
Well, Tiff, this has been so fun. I wish we had more time to talk and maybe we can schedule some more in the future. But in the meantime, how can folks, I mean, if anyone who's watching or listening to this right now, they probably already follow you on social media, but in case they do not, how do they find you on social media? On social media, I am at Tiffany_Smith. Twitter, Instagram, I'm on there all the time. I'll let you guys know when I'm doing cool, fun stuff or not cool, fun stuff. Sometimes I just... And everyone can hear you, maybe not see you, but they can definitely hear you on July 23rd. Well, they can see you because you're hosting an after show for Masters of the Universe with Kevin and Tim, the writer, one of the writers on the show. So they will be able to see you on Netflix on July 23rd. So thank you, Tiffany. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.